Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Jen Beckett, and I'm one of the organisers of the Swiftposium. Thanks. I'd like to start today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the unceded land on which we've gathered today and on which the University of Melbourne is built, the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Bunurong peoples. We also acknowledge and are grateful to the traditional owners, elders and knowledge holders of all Indigenous nations and clans who have been instrumental in our reconciliation journey at the University of Melbourne. We recognise the unique place held by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the original owners and custodians of the lands and waterways across Australia, with histories of continuous connection dating back more than 60,000 years. We also acknowledge their enduring cultural practices of caring for country. We pay respects to elders, past, present and future, and acknowledge the importance of Indigenous knowledge in the Academy. As a community of researchers, teachers, professional staff and students, we are privileged to work and learn every day with Indigenous colleagues and partners. And I'd like to extend my respect to any First Nations people who are with us here tonight. So, the Swiftposium. We're trying to better understand the impact that Taylor Allison Swift has had across a range of different areas, from medicine and psychology to law and business, fine arts and literature, and of course my field, media and communications. We're doing this because we feel that it's important to think about and question what it means for one person to have so much influence and power, and how that shapes how we see and live in the world. I always joke with people that academics are the children who always asked why, and that we never really grew out of it. We are a curious bunch by nature, but the purpose of a university is not just to generate knowledge, it's to share that knowledge in ways that make sense to the communities we serve. So all of you. The Swiftposium is a great opportunity to do just that, which is what's at the heart of tonight's panel. The conversation tonight will be focused on the very real impact that Taylor has had on the music industry, with her fans, as well as her advocacy for women both in the industry and outside of it. So, without further ado, let me announce tonight's moderator, Georgie Tunney. Georgie is a Melbourne-based journalist who you probably know as the host for Network 10's The Project. But did you know that Georgie is also a bit of a Swiftie and the co-host of the new Taylor Swift-inspired podcast, Ready For It? Georgie started her journalism career with the ABC, where she was part of ABC News Breakfast presenting team for 4 years. She also took on roles as sports presenter, weather presenter, and co-host during the 2020 bushfire emergency coverage and throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. So if there is anyone who is better fitting to moderate a panel on Taylor Swift, it's Georgie. We're thrilled to have her.
I stormed the stage early, thank you. Thank you so much.
We're absolutely thrilled to have her tonight to moderate the conversation. So I'm going to hand it over to you now, Georgie.
Thank you, lovely. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you all. Thank you so much for coming, my goodness. And special shout out to that woman there in the gold dress. I can see you. You are fearless, and I love it. I love it already. Guys, we're going to have such a fun chat. We've been chatting to all of our fantastic panelists downstairs, and they're awesome and also incredibly intelligent. I'm feeling a little bit insecure, but that's okay. That's okay. Let's bring them out so you can meet them as well and also feel insecure about your intelligence. Why not? First up, we have Kate Neal. Please give her a round of applause. Kate is an award-winning artist with over 20 years' experience as a composer, arranger, educator, collaborator, told you, very smart. Kate is also a lecturer in interactive composition at the University of Melbourne in the Faculty of Fine Arts and Music, and also a fabulous tennis player, is what I have learnt. So please, another round of applause for Kate. Hi, everyone. Our next panellist is Mahala Bond, who hopefully, there she is, She's there. Mahala Bond is a Melbourne-based artist manager and festival coordinator with over 5 years' experience in the Australian music industry. She aims to embody fairness, community values, and prioritise mental health alongside creative growth. She also works very, very closely with a band you may have heard of called the Teskey Brothers. Please welcome Mahala. And last but certainly not least, we have Kate Patterson, who is a PhD candidate in music industry at RMIT. She researches pop music fandoms, and her PhD research looks at the relationship between fan participation, skill development, and professional pathways, with a focus of the fandoms on Taylor Swift, Harry Styles, Delta Goodrem, and BTS. She's also in the best dress other than the fearless lady here today. Please welcome Kate. Guys, how are we feeling? I'm going to start my little timer, otherwise I'll keep you here for too many hours. But first of all, what I think we need to do, just so everyone is on the same page, if you can, rate or rank yourself as a Swiftie from the numbers 1 to 13. Where would you sit? Where would you sit? Kate, you first.
Oh gosh, 1 to 13. It's such an odd sort of catchment, isn't it? Look, I think she's really fascinating, and I'm really interested in her history and her sound and how she's changed her sound. I would probably put myself about a 7 or an 8.
That's not bad. Yeah, that's good.
I think she's, unique and fascinating and interesting, and I like thinking about where she's been and where she is.
Mm-hmm. Mahala?
Yeah, I think I'm similar page to you. I'm not a die-hard Swiftie. I don't think that I could say that I follow every Easter egg that she does, but I'm really fascinated by her and her business structure, and as an artist, the way that she wants to communicate with her fans and the strategy behind everything that she does. So I think yeah, like a 7.5, maybe an 8.
7.5.
Out of intrigue as to like her brain and how it works.
Yeah.
Not out of obsession of her as a construct.
Still, that's a pass. That's above average. So there you go. That's pretty good. And Kate, need I ask? 1 to 13, where are you?
I'm probably an 11 or 12, so definitely probably the Swiftie. Look, I would love to say 13, but I feel like that adds the level of pressure of just knowing every single Easter egg and every single hidden thing that she's doing. So I'm not gonna get myself right at 13, but I definitely have been a big fan for a while. So yeah, happy to represent.
Okay, I love it. What is it about Taylor Allison Swift that you think makes her this icon? Why is the world obsessed with her?
I mean, I think particularly at the moment, there are just so many different ways to engage with Taylor Swift. So since the last time she was here, we've had Lover, we've had Folklore, Evermore, Midnights. So, if you're into more kind of alternative indie music, there's a way to sort of get involved. If you're a big pop fan like I am, there's been heaps of pop. But also, she's just dominating so many other parts of the culture, whether it's the NFL of recent times, whether it's the legal battles and the kind of conversation she's having around the music industry. There's just a headline about Taylor Swift every week, and there's just always something to talk about. And I think because of that, a lot of people have found a lot of different ways to engage with her. And obviously with the Eras tour coming up, we've seen a lot of clips. I think there's a lot of FOMO, and everyone just wants to get involved. So
I also think that she grows up with you as a generation. Like, it's not just one demographic that she's targeting. She has, the tweens and the younger kids, but she also has like people in their 60s that are obsessed with her. And so it's like a family affair where you go to these events and it's not just youthful. Like, yes, her fandom has aged with her, but it's also still young, even though she's now in her mid-30s, and there's also the older aspect. So it's like a growing up experience through her music and the adventure of like what she offers each show.
And Kate, where do you think she kind of sits in terms of pop artists and pop female artists in particular, let's say?
Yeah, I suppose the sort of pop diva and the mega concert are just a sort of fascinating area of music. And we think of Madonna as one of the kind of foundations of the pop diva and the mega concert. But actually it was sort of 10 years prior to Madonna people like Kate Bush was saying, I saw my show as a whole play with characters. And she really personified this idea of the witch and the vixen. And then, you know, with someone like Madonna, we have the kind of slut bride, and she investigates character with blood on the wedding dress, and Lady Gaga rising out of the wheelchair, again with blood and on the wedding dress, and Taylor, you know, alludes to wedding dresses as well. And so we've got this history of the kind of pop diva and the mega concert and what that signifies in terms of feminism, but also a lens of the feminist. So it's very strong, this kind of sexualised space. Of course, men do the mega concert as well, but not quite like the pop diva. Diva was always a sort of negative word that we would...
I wanted to ask you, do you think it's a good or bad word?
Well, it was historically, diva was, it means goddess actually in a sort of etymological sense, but diva used to be used as the spoilt princess, you know, the overprivileged performer, the tantruming lady. But I think since Madonna, we've come to see the pop diva as something very strong, very anchored, very fused, media-wise. I'm thinking of Ez Devlin's design when Miley Cyrus comes out the stage on her own tongue as a platform.
I was at that concert. Yeah.
These kind of major design moments, actually, that pull a lot of things together with male dancers flailing around and, you know, leotards with high boots. There's this hyper-sexualised but very strong feminine and feminist lens on those kind of concerts.
I think it depends.
Mega concerts.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you skew it, because the media might skew it in a sense of she's a diva, she did this and she didn't want other things, X, Y, and Z. But it's also, like you said, like Madonna constructed diva and like took back the power of the word. So it really depends on the context of each situation and what the media is trying to, you know, drag out in that kind of context.
And yeah, I think that artists have been reclaiming it. Like Beyonce's got the song Diva. And then if you think of somebody like Mariah Carey, who has been labelled a diva a lot, she's really leaning into that. She's like, yeah, I am a diva. Let me just kind of portray that in every sense of the word, and is happy to do so as part of her brand. So yeah, I think that the context is really important.
I love that we have been talking about Madonna while we're all wearing Madonna mics, which is very exciting for me. Mahala also pointed out that it is a Lizzie McGuire mic too, for all the Lizzie McGuire fans. Kate, why do you think that Tay, why do people so young love her? Why do people who are our age love her? Why do people who are older love her? There doesn't necessarily seem to be a restriction when it comes to the demographics that go to her.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the first part, the fans that were 13, 14, 15 when she first started are now in their 30s, in their early 40s, and so some of them are having kids now, and you see them bring them along to shows and get really excited and sharing those kind of songs together. And I think too, her songwriting is so vast that you've got those kind of, you know, youthful teenage songs about falling in love for the first time or being bullied at school, or things that sort of younger kids can relate to. But then also, as we know from, you know, Folklore or Evermore or sort of the later catalogue, is she does really dive into sort of more complicated topics, and I think that has given her a much broader audience. And so, yeah, I don't think that there's a particular age. I mean, that's obviously, when you think of Taylor Swift fans, most people think of, you know, the screaming teenage girls, but I definitely think that her appeal and demographic is much broader than that.
I've got this statistic here that 53% of American adults are Swift fans. Now, I know these conference people might know more than me about that.
You've got fact checkers in the room, yeah.
Fact checkers. But I did think that was an enormous kind of percentage, right?
It's gigantic.
When we think about just the implications of that, 53%. Oh, that's really...
Well, then that kind of leads in nicely with something that I kind of wanted to head your way, Mahala, which is, there's been criticism of Taylor from people who aren't necessarily Swifties, that she's sort of vanilla or boring or basic, but obviously that appeals en masse.
Yep.
Do you think it is a conscious choice for her, or is it society in general that hasn't, I don't know, made her that sexualized diva, per se?
So the question is if it's a conscious choice about
Is it a
that?
conscious choice for her to not really use her own sex appeal?
I think that being a woman in the music industry is already hard enough, and you add sexualization to something and it takes it into a whole other sphere of conversation. I think that she is really strategic with the way that she presents herself, because women in the music industry already are sexualized by purely existing in the most mundane of ways. You're also always categorized as difficult and a diva or bossy, rather than knowing what you're talking about and strategic. And it just kind of leans into the whole inequality within the music industry. And if a man were to do something, literally how she says it in the song, The Man, it's not going to be the same as an experience for a woman. So I think that when she wants to sexualize herself, it's a strategic choice because of some other reason that within her campaign that she is doing. Otherwise, I think she's just a woman who is living her life, dressing how she wants to dress, with the style that she wants to have, and then the media sexualize her or pull her apart, or someone comments on something on social media and then every fan has an opinion, and then there's a war in some kind of social platform. So it's really her world, and we're all just trying to figure out how we're living in it. That's what I think.
Yeah, I like that. That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. She's got this interesting thing, though, hasn't she? And you see it in Miss Americana, where she says several times, "I want to be good. I want to be the good girl." And so, when I think about her in relation to the pop diva and the mega concert, there's several things that kind of characterise her relationship in there. And one is that she personifies herself. So, you know, if we think about persona in pop music, we often think, you know, David Jones is David Bowie, who is also Ziggy Stardust. But with someone like Taylor Swift, her lens is very much, I am me, I am the good girl. So she's not trying to be like the ultra-sexualized persona that Madonna might present in, you know, being the bad girl. She wants to be a kind of stripped-back, story-told lens of herself. She's very autobiographical all the time. That's interesting, I think.
Definitely, but I also think that from when she was younger, she did definitely have that construct of good girl, and that was what, you know, the background she came from, what America's kind of traditional view on a white, cisgendered, straight woman is.
Country.
Good girl, country, Nashville, you know, religion, background, if she has that upbringing. But then as she's aged, especially post-Reputation, you saw she was like, I want to own my sexualization, and I'm going to be taking back the power and presenting this to these fans, to the industry. And then again, with Evermore, she kind of lent a bit more into that good girl, wholesome, you know, cottagecore vibe. And then now I feel like with the Eras tour, it's got all those elements, but she's like, I'm a powerful woman with beauty and grace. It's not necessarily her at 15 and Fearless album. Like, she's come into her own, and you can see that in the way that she's presenting all the outfits that she does in every show and every time she steps out, you know, for a dinner or for a meeting or for a photo shoot. It's all a choice of what she's wanting to convey to people.
And don't us as fans just eat it up. We eat it up. Kate, who do you think, or how would you describe, and I am asking for massive sweeping generalizations here, but how would you describe a Taylor Swift fan?
Oof, it's a hard question. I mean, you're looking at one, so that's a good start. I mean, I think Swifties really encompass a lot of different things. I mean, in the research that I've been doing, I found that the way that they view themselves and the way that society views themselves, they think of quite differently. And so they were really making a point when sort of self-describing of, you know, we're really intelligent. Like, some of us are doctors, some of us are in academia, some of us, you know, we're more than just, you know, screaming girls doing these things. So I don't know if
mutually exclusive, not mutually exclusive.
Yes.
But yeah.
All about the screaming. So I don't know if you can generalize them per se, but I think we've seen that they have a lot of collective power and they can come together, and there's a real sense of community amongst Swifties. Going to the Eras tour, you know, a lot of people might not know anybody and they go along and they can, it's a space where they feel like they can talk to other people and make friends, and I think that is something that the majority of Swifties try to embody as part of the fandom. So yeah, I don't know if we could generalize them in one way or the other.
How does her fandom differ from some of the other superstars that you research?
I mean, I think the really clever thing with Taylor, and I mean, depending on whether you want to take a critical or view of it, is that since the very beginning, she's always had a very engaged relationship with her fans, and that is genuine in the sense that she wants to connect with them, but it also is a bit of a marketing strategy. I mean, she provides the fans with all these opportunities to buy multiple copies of vinyls or do all of these things as a way to sort of display their fandom. And so I think in that sense it does help her in her career to do so. And she also rewards her fans. So since the very beginning of her career, lucky people will get a message from Taylor Nation that says, you've been picked, you can come to a secret session and come to Taylor's house and hear the album for the first time, or you can come backstage. And so because fans know that there's that possibility of getting to be invited, that really heightens how much they participate online, because there's that chance of that sort of reward. And it brings up conversations about, like, is there a right way to be a Taylor Swift fan, and what are the right ways to do that might get you that elusive invite? And that can be something that's quite interesting, just in terms of not wanting to say a bad word about her, or being a particular type of fan. But I think definitely because of that, unlike, say, like Harry Styles, who he uses social media just to occasionally post a photo from a tour, you don't have that kind of regular engagement or regular possibility of engagement that does make them so eager to participate.
Mahala, with Kate there talking about, this commercial mindedness of Taylor, I am on the record as saying I think that she invented capitalism. Yeah. And I love her still. I love her for it. But from your perspective and, the work that you do every single day with artists, from a business sense, what do you find most interesting or impressive that she does?
Her fan engagement is probably standout. Like, there's this kind of saying in the industry of, if you can have 1,000 fans that are like diehard, you can make it anywhere. She's got millions that are diehard, right? And they're doing exactly what Kate just said. So I'm going to use Harry Styles as an example. He posts the live tour thing, and it's like, cool, oh my God, that's amazing, we want to see it. But there's nothing there where he's bridging the audience with him and his brand. Everyone just loves him because he's Harry Styles, so it works for him. But the reason she's the next step up is because she has this engagement where she's like, I want you to know me and I want to know you. Share your stories. I'm going to share my story. Here's a hint there. There's more coming, but you don't know. And it's kind of like a game in a way, where we don't know what game it is, because she's like the master curator of it all. And I don't think her record labels know what is actually going on, to be honest. No, seriously. Like, I think that they probably throw ideas at her and she's like, I'm not really sure if that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm going to do this. Because she's at a point where she's the one in the power. Like, when you're an artist that's lower, you kind of have to play a game with the record label. But she's a megastar that they're kind of like, how can we help you to do this? Like, what do you need from us? It's usually the other way around. So I think it's purely the engagement is what, makes her different. Like, yes, the songwriting is, once in a generation kind of experience that we're having right now, but it's the connection with the people that she is sharing this music with, because without fans, well, anyone can release music. That's just the end of it. Like, we're in an age where I could go and write an album and put it out tomorrow. Doesn't mean anyone's going to listen to it, because there's no one that knows about me or wants to know about me. And personality is the next thing that takes an artist to that next level, because you want to connect. And she shares those stories of her life, which means it's relatable to me and my life. And then there's that bridge that is closed. So each artist does it differently. Lady Gaga's another good example with like her Little Monsters.
Yeah.
And I think that, in the age of David Bowie and Madonna, they had their own way, but it was different because there wasn't social media and there wasn't as big a thing of like fan clubs. Fan clubs are a huge contribution of a marketing campaign to releases that artists do these days. And you have to have the audience to create one of them. Like mid-tier artists, there's not enough to really put money into it. So it's one of those things where quite, successful artists really are able to do.
So there's a lot of us, Swifties, millions. Kate, what is it about her sound? What do we like about her sound?
I think what's interesting, and I'm sure I'd love to hear from all the fans actually, is that she changes directions in her audio production, and we know that from the re-recording of the albums and the rift with record companies. And the sound did become cleaner when she re-recorded. But I also think she turns sharp corners, and we know from Evermore and Folklore that was a radical shift. And so she can, in her storytelling, which she says is her main kind of thing, that she wants to connect through storytelling. I think it's interesting that a pop artist, focuses on that, her story becoming the listener's story, but we're still listening to Taylor's story, really. And then that she can channel that through different kinds of sonic fields. So I think, 1989 is really different from Evermore, and we know that. But it's very radically different in its sonic underpinning. The way Aaron Dessner produces the album is muted piano, reversing small audio artifacts. It's quite diverse. The vocals are very dry. They're up the front. There's the lack of the big drops, and the electronic large sonic electronic artifacts are kind of absent from the album. So I think she can, capture a large audience by these different ways of presenting story and narrative.
Do you think she's good for the music industry? And again, I know that's a big question, and I'm asking for general statements, but is she good for it?
I think she's a powerful figure for young women. I mean, I was just talking to someone the other day, and they didn't, a mum with quite a few kids, and she didn't know the music at all, but she said, I'm quite happy that my girls have her as a role model, because she's sort of powerful and inspiring in that way, that she'll make strong statements for women and stand up for what she believes in, and use her different mediums of social media to make political statements. And I think she's a very powerful force.
Yeah, I think that she also humanizes herself within the industry. She always advocates for the underdog and emerging artists because she was that once upon a time, and I think that she recognizes that megastars can forget where they come from. And, Spotify, she took her music off that was a big thing, and of course now it's back on, but she wanted to make a point that emerging artists and mid-tier artists do not make money from platforms like this. And so she didn't have to do that, she lost revenue from that, but she wanted to get involved in the conversation within the industry and the royalty rights of mastering and, where the money goes. But I also think that she really advocates for women, even though within the discussion of different things that she's had, the Kanye-Beyonce situation, her and Beyonce stuck together. There's this thing with Olivia Rodrigo and Taylor Swift going on where there's this feud of Olivia had to give her certain royalties about one of her songs, but she was just at the Grammys singing every bloody word to Olivia's songs. Whether or not it's a front, I think that she knows that she has power based on her actions when she's in the media. So she's, they might not like each other, but she's making a choice to give the perception that she is backing women. She's taking women on tour with her. She's not just picking male identifying artists to support. It's not to say she shouldn't, it's just that female artists, it's harder to get out there and get a foot up in the industry because you're already a minority and you're already fighting in a male-dominated industry. So I think the fact that she talks about that, and she talks about being a woman in the industry and the way that they have different approaches to conversations with you of how you're going to do something, is something we need in order for further change to occur as an industry personnel, as an artist, as a fan. Yeah, she's a really important figure for the future of musicians and the industry.
Yeah, and I think, as you've said, with that power, she's done a lot of good. She's started a lot of conversations that have then had a flow-on effect to other artists as well. And I think the thing now is also just when we think of something like the ARIA charts, and if she's got all the top 5 albums, incredible. I'm contributing to that with my streams of all of her records, but also thinking about, okay, well, what can we do to support our local industry along with these mammoth stars that are
'Cause
coming here.
That's kind of where I'm at, because you know me, guys, diehard Swiftie. Had, most played on Spotify Wrapped, it was all Taylor. But that means, though, right, that I'm obviously consuming only Taylor a lot of the time. So therefore, I am ignoring a whole lot of grassroots artists, and that's on me. But also, it means that the charts then don't get to see them either.
And that's one thing that I have a very conflicting perspective on, because it's already hard as an Australian artist to get recognition within your own country, because international artists are always dominating the charts here. And it means that there's only the likes of Troye Sivan, maybe Kylie when she's on rotation, and honestly I think that's kind of it, to be honest, because Taylor's dominated. She's dominated the charts for the last year to 18 months with at least one album in every week.
I would say there's one exception to that most recently, which is G-Flip, but ironically covering a Taylor Swift song.
Yes, yes.
Which, amazing.
Iconic.
We love G. But I would say that G released one of the best albums that I've heard.
And they made it in the charts for the week of release, and I think a couple of weeks after, but then, unfortunately, Tay pushes everyone out, The artists that I were working with, the Teskey Brothers, made it in the charts for a few weeks, and then she bumped back up, And so it's this thing where it's okay, cool, there's this woman dominating, and she's capitalising in, the Australian industry is considered foreign land. For the rest of the world, we are foreign. We are far away. We kind of don't exist. People don't realise that Australian artists are actually coming from Australia. They think that they're all American because, that's how Americans kind of think. Sorry if anyone's American here. But it just means that there's this, tall poppy syndrome, which Taylor's dominating, that Australian artists can't then get a foot even in the door. And it just creates this kind of complex, well, how do you do better, because she's already consuming every market without intention. She doesn't mean to. It's the fans that kind of catapult it in this next level way.
Well, that's because as fans, I think, and Kate, you might be able to back me up on this, we see her as an extension of ourselves, and I feel like that relationship, it's got this term now called parasocial, right? Do you think fandoms are safe? Are they good? Are they healthy? Maybe not safe's not the word, healthy.
I think with any fandom, it's essentially like a large group of people. I don't think you could say it's one or the other. I think there's definitely toxic parts of fandom, and I think particularly when you've got platforms like Twitter or X, though I refuse to call it that, there is that ability for people to jump on to a journalist if they've given a negative review, or there's, a lot of disagreements within fandoms, because you've got a whole bunch of different people coming together. So I don't think we can say it's one or the other. I mean, definitely I think music fandom can facilitate a lot of community and helps people construct a sense of self. As you said, we kind of see ourselves in these kind of artists. And so I think there are some really important aspects of how fandom is really beneficial, but I think we can't discount those other kind of aspects as well, because like with any big group of people, we can't just say it's sort of one or the other. But and I think with Taylor too, it's, she's so popular right now that I think sometimes we forget that, in 2016, 2017, it's like everybody piled on Taylor. And I think for a lot of Taylor fans and Swifties, they still have this kind of defensive, we want to defend her and we want her to do well, and she kind of went through the trenches and now she's back, so we're going to keep supporting her and keep kind of helping her start to rise, per se. And so I think that's a little bit of it as well too, is we have a little bit of a no, we want her to do well.
Pass basket.
Yeah. Is that off-putting, Kate, as someone who's only a 7 on the 1 to 13 Richter scale that we've constructed of a Swiftie? Can Swifties' passion be off-putting?
I don't know. I just think she's such a phenomenon in that she sort of appeals to 10-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds and 17-year-olds, and there's no shame in those divisions of fandom.
What brand of feminism do you think that she promotes, maybe? Does she have one?
It's a good question. I think she's powerfully herself, even though that lens that we're seeing that in is persona. I mean, she's she's alluding to that, isn't she? She's fabricating it, if you like.
Are you saying she's not my best friend? What do you mean?
But she wants us to feel close to her. She wants us to know her. And there's something powerful about that, because her strength is also her transparency. And we can see that in Miss Americana. She really strips back, doesn't she? She wants us to see her as she is in her Ugg boots. And I think that's a powerful female statement, that she's not always hiding in another persona. She wants us to feel her stories. She wants her stories to be our stories.
I think, though, that, if we bring it to, say, a Melbourne music scene level, just for contrast, people would say that she's too perfect. The way she conveys things is too perfect. Like, where's the grit? Where's the mistakes? Where's the public failure? Not in a sense of falling down, but, we're all human, we all make mistakes. Yet we never see her kind of portraying that side. Yes, she had unintentional mistakes, but in a sense of, like, I'm going to contrast it to, say, Bikini Kill. That's like punk feminism, like, anger and angst and Don't Mess With Us. Taylor does Don't Mess With Us in a more of, like, I'm not going to get in your face way. I'm going to be, a bit behind the door, but really I've constructed this whole mastermind. You're just not aware of it. Whereas Bikini Kill will be like, well, F you all, and I'm not apologetic about it. So there's these different types of feminism within the music industry, but someone like Bikini Kill, I don't even know if anyone here knows who Bikini Kill is. Okay, good, great. But yeah, like, they're iconic, and yet they would not be considered in the same realm as Taylor, or in the same realm of, like, women in music. They're two different spheres. So
That's right. That's why that persona is still constructed.
Yeah, it's still
It's still
constructed.
a construct. That's interesting.
Definitely.
What do you think, Kate, has been Tay's journey when it comes to being a good feminist, whatever that means? But, like, within feminism herself, finding it, representing it, from when she was 16 to now?
Well, I think if you think back to some of the earlier albums, there were some kind of lyrics that she's since changed that were definitely, I guess, not the most positive towards women.
Do you think that was necessary for her to do?
I think it was a hotly contested thing as to whether she was going to change it or not. I think obviously it's by changing it, the original versions now still have a lot more value because they're different to the re-recorded ones. But I think she would have gotten a lot of flack for keeping that in, and I don't know, it's probably, maybe some people would disagree with me, but I think she kind of had to. I think otherwise it would have been perhaps a reminder for people who may not have been a fan back then of, oh, okay, this is some interesting, slut shaming or whatever it might be in those kind of early country things. But I think overall, as we've said, in Miss Americana, she talks about deconstructing this idea of her being the good girl and not wanting to ruffle any feathers. And I think because of that, she kind of didn't speak a lot about feminist issues or anything like that. And she's obviously started to do that over the trajectory of her career. I think with any pop star of that magnitude, there's always going to be a lot of pressure on what is she going to speak out about, what is she not going to speak out about. And I think, as she said, she's still learning and she's still in a process of doing that. But she's definitely come a long way, I think, from those early days of I'm just going to make music and I'm not going to talk about anything else because nobody wants me to talk about politics or feminist issues or anything like that. And so, yeah, I think with a lot of pop stars, we perhaps say they're not feminist enough, and I think definitely there is still a lot of work that can be done, but I think we shouldn't dismiss that she's started on that path and is starting to have those conversations and sort of use her voice in those ways.
But isn't that interesting? You just said, like, pop stars, and we think women when we think pop stars, and it's this whole thing of, like, well, feminism can only be for female identifying artists. Like, we never put this pressure on the male artist.
Yeah.
We're not like, Harry Styles is a feminist presenting artist. He is, an ally of all, but we don't have an expectation on him to hit a certain bar. Whereas Taylor, Rihanna, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, it's like, well, they fell short here, or they should have done better here, or, there's this pressure of, like, what kind of feminist are you and what are you going to talk about? And I think it just, again, comes back to, the inequality within the industry of male and female identifying people, and the pressures that we have and the expectations that we put on these people, because they are just people. Like, you put them on a platform, but they're just people. And how are you meant to publicly make a choice about Roe versus Wade, or, you know, what I should wear next week at this tour, and it is too sexualized? It's a whole construct that is very much still very built within the industry.
Do you think, Kate, that that's something that we're seeing more and more now, is that, and whether intentionally or not, but it's like activism, feminism, or anything like that, is this kind of integral to being a successful artist? You need to pick a side.
I think there's power in it. I don't know that artists always have to pick a side or be political or make a statement. I think we know that artists can be controversial by doing the opposite. I don't think art has a responsibility to always be political. I don't think it always has to comment on the history of our time. I don't think we know from history that it doesn't. We know that it can, and it can point to the future. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
It does, because it leads me on to thinking about, again, talking about the omnipresence of Taylor and just her inability to leave the charts. Because part of that, right? He's attacked by a bug. It's Taylor, hi. She's everywhere, omnipresent. Part of that is these re-records. And from the vault, is that you've just got more content. Which other artists do you think would successfully be able to employ this?
Rihanna.
Yeah,
Rihanna's kind of been out of it in a musical way. I think there's a record coming this year. She's been focusing on her family. But when you put her business model structure with Taylor's, she's just built it in a different way. And it's been, you know, like makeup and beauty and lingerie. But both of them think in the same way, that they're connecting with their target audiences. And I think that if Rihanna really wanted to be touring in the way that Taylor is and releasing in the way that Taylor is, she could do it, and she could match Taylor in every way. Like, she's a very switched on woman. And I think Beyonce's already been doing it, but Beyonce's like 10 years ahead of the game, because she was, you know, the 90s pop star, and so therefore she has a different kind of structure that she was brought up in through Destiny's Child. So they're my two picks for that.
I mean, one thing that's significant about Taylor Swift is she writes pretty much all her own material. And, you know, Rihanna doesn't always.
Rihanna doesn't, no, and that's a really good point.
And it, you know, it just keeps her storytelling and her narrative and her persona, they're all sort of linked together, aren't they, in this, you know, she's the writer,
But that's what differentiates her, is the business side. Rihanna could match her. The songwriting side, I don't think Rihanna could, because Taylor writes all her own music.
And she's so prolific.
And she's so
much material.
Yeah.
And that's what sets her aside. Like, you can have all these writers that write a pop song for Dua Lipa or Beyonce or whatever, and that's cool. It will reach an audience, it'll have an impact. But her songwriting is personalized, and it's, you know, about her life, and it's every day, and it's the experiences she's had, and that means that fans connect with that over, say, like a pop song like Electric by Dua Lipa or something, Electricity or whatever. That is like a great song, but I don't even know what it's about. Whereas it's just got a good feel to it, but I don't know what it's about. Whereas Taylor Swift, you know, like, you know, My Tears Ricochet, well, that's about, in my opinion, Scooter Braun and what he did to her. So you can kind of connect the moments in her life where each song is, whereas I think Dua Lipa is kind of going into that now, but in her early artistry, she hasn't. She's more been like, I'm a pop star who's going to, like, get in your ears sonically. And that's why she's very different to Rihanna.
I'm conscious of time, because I know we do want to get some questions from you guys so that you can interrogate the panelists as well. But before we do that, Kate, do you get annoyed? I'm calling you the doctor of fandom, so hopefully you're fine with that. Do you get annoyed when people trivialise how important an artist is to them? And usually, and again, I'm generalising, usually it is young female fans. Yeah. People are just like, oh my God, that's crazy. Why would you do that? This bee is back. But like, why would you do that? Like, that's so ridiculous. And yet they go off and, you know, it's usually the comparison is, but you go and watch your football games and all of this. It's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I don't think any sports fans get the same kind of treatment as fans, female fans, pop music fans. And I think that's because pop music fans, like Swifties, are kind of belittled in multiple cultural hierarchies because fans are considered female because you picture them as these like hysterical, pathological, screaming young girls. And pop music as a genre is also seen as feminine compared to like rock or, you know, kind of other genres of music. And so I think the combination of the two means that because we live in this gendered society where those kind of more masculine traits are preferred or kind of highlighted, is that for a lot of young women in particular, it's like, well, why is what we like cringe, and why is our music not as good as these other types of music just because some critic out there somewhere, you know, feels that way? And so I think, yes, it is irritating. I think we've come a long way in sort of shifting those perceptions, and I think for a lot of fans, they've started to reclaim it a little bit, and so they're a bit less ashamed of talking about their fandom publicly, kind of with friends and family, whereas perhaps in the past they might have separated their fan life from the rest of their life because it's seen as something you're supposed to grow out of, it's seen something that's cringe, and so, you know, if you're going to a job interview, you might not go in saying, oh yeah, and in my spare time I'm a massive Swiftie, whereas you might go and say, you know, I love Carlton Football Club, and that would be something you would bond over. You know, we don't have those. I think we're getting a lot better, but I think we still have these overarching negative perceptions of fandom, and in some ways we feel like it's a bit too much, where we don't think, you know, I'm sure at the Super Bowl this week there'll be men in the stands crying and, you know, ripping things and, you know, doing all these things, but we wouldn't have the same, oh, it's too much, this is overwhelming, you know. We let different people express joy in different ways, and so I think that's important to think about when we think about Swifties.
Are we're still going good for time? This is my little time check. Oh no, okay. So who may have a question? Oh my gosh, we've got questions. How great. Hello, please state your name and then your question.
Hi.
We've got the mic. Yep.
My name's Dawn Gilmore. I just wanted to go back to the beginning. Georgie, you didn't give us your rating.
Oh, my rating. Oh my gosh. Oh, look, I'm probably a 12. Like, I'm not a 13 because I'm with Kate. I don't know every single thing, and I have people in my life who are definitely that, like, hitting that 13. They're a 12.8, and they're the ones that keep me informed about, you know, the breaking news. Like, for instance, just on Monday, God, I had the best day. With the Grammys, I had the best day. Yeah. And the announcement of, keep calling it Dead Poets Society, but the Tortured Poets Department, the Tortured Man Club, like, I had the best day when that came out. But I didn't know because I wasn't watching the Grammys, like, for every second. My girlfriend texted me I was in the car, like, and I was just, like, losing my mind. So I'm a 12. So room for improvement, room for growth. Yes, but thank you. Who else had a question? Oh, yes, down here. Yes. Now, I think we've got to get you oh, yes, we've got a mic. Yep, you're right. You ready?
Okay. Hello, my name is Durin Pintana.
Hello.
I am 13, so...
hello. You are the 13? Oh, my God. Every friendship group needs one. Yeah, we need you.
Okay, my question is just in some of what you were talking about. What do you think about Taylor's history with her fans, and do you think there's an artist who could replicate that or a comparison? So, for example, what you said, it's not just about knowing what a song is about. Like, we found out You're Losing Me was written in December of 2021, meaning it was partway through her and Joe's relationship. And so what does that mean? And so this new album is definitely about him because she's been working on it for 2 years. But how it's not just listening to the song, it's like every song is a window into her life, and we're listening for any indication, including when they were written, where she was, what she was thinking about, and anytime we find out anything about that, we're writing it down and making charts. We being me. But that's a crazy thing to have, and it is that, all of that history. So could another artist?
So essentially, could another artist be able to, or have this relationship with their fans, or encourage it, I guess, so consciously maybe?
I think yes, but I think that it takes a lot of time to build. She didn't do this overnight. And so this is one thing about managing artists' expectations. Taylor's level of stardom and the connection with her fans doesn't happen in 2 years. It takes decades. Like, she's been around for ages. She's been doing this for nearly 20 years. And I think back to when, she was, say, in her early 20s, it was like 2010, 2014 vibes. Social media wasn't as big a thing. She didn't have that connection to her fans that she does now. So it's easier now to kind of foster that, but you really have to figure out in what way you're going to. Like, it's about thinking how you want to connect with your fans, because you can't just connect on every level straight away. You have to focus on one kind of facet that you're wanting to bond over with them, that maintains that kind of fandom throughout every journey that you're going through. And then as you get them, then it can morph into something bigger. But I'm trying to think of someone who's good at the moment.
Have any artists that like spring to mind that you're like, oh, they've kind of, not maybe exactly the same, but they've had that similar impact?
No. I think what's interesting about what you say is, and I loved what you said about, and I read something somewhere about the interesting thing about Taylor Swift is her listeners are listening to her story.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily embodying her story as their own story. And you really brought that up, that you're thinking about where she was and what was happening and what was going on for her. And so you're getting into her sort of persona. I just think that's really interesting. And it's very unique to her that she tells always her own story.
We're detectives.
I think that's the thing that cuts through, though, with artists, is when they tell their own story over telling something that their label or, a facade that they're trying to present. You connect with them as the person and the musician, not just the sound. Like, any artist can create good sound, but whether or not you love them and want to be invested in them is what they share about their lives.
Yeah. And I think the Easter eggs is really important. I mean, I get very invested in them as well, but from the very beginning, Taylor set up all of her work as like, you should read into this. Like, I've hidden things. There's so many different ways. How far in advance can I hint at things? 2-3 years. And obviously, at the beginning, it was just simple things like in the album liners. And now we've got the, people finding all these clues for the Tortured Poets department in things she did, a year ago or whatever. And I don't think that there's many other artists that have that level of planning and layers to their work, and I think it does mean people engage with it on a deeper level. And as we said, sometimes it might be things she hasn't intended for people to find, but it means that even when she's not releasing something, it's like there's a constant conversation around, well, this number adds up to 13 and this number adds up to this. So the other day at a show, she said, oh, I wrote this song 175 days ago, and everyone's like, what's in 175 days?
Yeah.
And so, yes, I don't think you can do that overnight, but I think because of that level of close reading and engagement, it is quite difficult for other people to be able to do that if they haven't sort of had that from the beginning.
I was just thinking, how fun would it be to be in her boardroom, her strategic boardroom, and all I'm picturing is just whiteboards, and then all of the threads that she's like, yes, in 2 years they won't know what hit them. Like,
That's just such a planner.
yeah,
Like,
she's such a planner.
Forward thinking.
I know.
Next level.
God, she's good. Do we have time for a couple more? Oh, we got one. Yeah. One down here. Yeah. Oh, you've got a mic. Oh, yes, lady here.
Yeah, I do have a mic. My name is Jennifer. I'm a very hard believer in the 5 hole in the fences, I think. That's probably very dated now. But I've got a really good question. It's a 2-pronged question.
Two-pronged question, yeah.
Yeah, I recently finished reading Britney Spears' The Woman Inside Me.
Oh, you did better than I. I got through 4 chapters, yes.
Yeah, it made me cry at the end, so just a little warning with that one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it got me thinking about the way women celebrities have really existed in the public space. And I just wanted to have an open floor question, I guess, here is how has the general public changed in terms of their views with mega pop stars such as Britney during her time and Taylor in the same in the same age? And secondly, it's what kind of lessons can we learn from knowing how Britney has been treated in her career and as a person in the public eye when it comes to safeguarding our current female pop stars and the emerging ones as well?
Okay, so maybe it's like the media representation and society's representation of our female pop stars, how that has shifted with you go think about Britney, oh my God, yeah. Back in the day, even some of the Taylor's talk show interviews. Like, you go back and watch her on Ellen. It's not great. It's not great. What do we think? Do we think it's getting better?
I mean, I remember back in 2007, there'd be memes that were like, if Britney can get through 2007, so can you. And it's like, I think now
shouldn't laugh.
we at least consider the artist and their mental health a bit more that perhaps we didn't do back then. And so I hope that has shifted in terms of, not immediately just being like, haha, how funny, like, let's make a meme out of this instead of considering all these other factors. I mean, I still think there's some rubbish media who would still ask some rubbish questions, but it's an interesting question about how do we look out for our artists, and I mean, it might get into that parasocial thing again of like feeling like it's our job to look after them and feeling like we know them, and you definitely want to make sure that they are,
But on that feeling like you know them and it's your job, there's also this pressure that unfortunately fandom does place on an artist, like an expectation of, well, now I got to feed you more. So that's like, how much can I feed you as an individual? And, where am I constructing it and where is it coming from? And then it's like, is it going to live up? Is it going to hit the charts? Is it going to, sell out immediately? Is it going to connect with the audience? Is it going to win a Grammy? Like, these are all the things that you're thinking after the last thing's just gone out. And I think that unfortunately fandom is a double-edged sword, because it's great in a sense of it supports an artist, it, lifts it up and everything, but it also creates this expectation that you might not match every single fan's expectation. So sometimes you lose some, or sometimes like, I don't love Lover or whatever, or that was really sad and she should have done that better. And so then it's like this, you think you have a relationship with this artist, but you don't actually know them. They're this world away from you, and you do have a relationship with them, but in your own kind of world, not a literal situation. And I think that, like you said, mental health is really important, and that's definitely changing. But musicians as a whole, there is this industry standard of, again, more, now do it better. And there's just like no end to it. Like, it doesn't stop, so unless an artist chooses.
Maybe we haven't learnt many lessons,
I don't think we have.
We haven't, that's bleak.
I don't think we have. I think we've learnt a bit about mental health in a sense of like, people need to be taking care of themselves. But Taylor's on this endless world tour right now, and yes, that's her choice, but it's also probably a contract that she has to fulfill. There's also, overheads she has to be paying for, so touring's the biggest revenue in music. You have to go out there and make the money from all the things that you've just constructed and recorded, So she's probably chasing a bit of a tail right now to kind of follow up with X, Y, and Z things.
I think the two artists that come to mind just on that kind of idea of care is probably like Shawn Mendes. I think recently sort of stopped his tour because he said he needed to take some time off.
Louis Capaldi.
And then also I think Ariana Grande was an interesting one, because I feel like obviously there were the Manchester attacks, and then lost Mac Miller, and there were all of these things. And I remember at the next few shows that she was performing at, a lot of people were like, why is she doing this? Like, clearly she's not in a position where she is well and, should be fronting up every night and being on stage and doing things. And so there were conversations around, like, I think we'd prefer her to just stop and take the time rather than crying on stage every night. And then, she was managed by Scooter Braun, so it's a whole other thing.
Maybe Selena Gomez is a good one.
Yeah,
actually. Well. Like, I think it's about the artist actively having to take the moment to stop, because otherwise it doesn't stop. And so Taylor Swift was forced to in COVID, but if COVID didn't happen, I think that she would have rolled on through Reputation, and I don't know if Evermore and Folklore would have actually existed, to be quite frank.
Yeah, I would agree. Another one down here. Great question, thank you.
All right, my name is Winda. So
hello.
So one of the most favorite thing to do with my Swiftie friends is we rank Taylor Swift and the album, songs, lyric, bridge, chorus, whatever. So my question is simple. What do you guys think is your first rank album of Taylor Swift catalog? And for whatever angle it can be. It can be from songwriting, business strategy, or just how you connect with it, whatever.
Okay, I love this question. So basically, what is your number one ranked Taylor Swift album can be for any reason. Just what number one, why is it number one right now? Kate.
Oof. Look, I think...
This is such a hard question.
It's a hard question. I mean, Red used to be my all-time favourite.
Oh my God, look at my phone thing, it says Red.
Hey. I don't know, at the moment I'm having a real Reputation moment. I think because I was convinced that she was going to drop Reputation this Friday night in Melbourne, I was really
clowns,
like, I need to be prepared, I just need to get in the zone. So I'd say right now, probably Reputation. My dream surprise song would be Right Where You Left Me. That's top of my list, hopefully in Melbourne to hear.
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear the most.
That would be amazing. Mahala, do you have an answer?
I think Reputation because she went grittier in the production with it, and also the songwriting of it. It had like power and darkness to it, whereas her earlier things were more like enlightened and, you know, acoustic. And she also reclaimed her own power from that record. It was about like self-loathing and what was taken from her and the choices that she could have done differently. And so I think that that record is still current because there's always something that you can be thinking about if I did this differently. So.
Okay. And I'd say Folklore for me, just because I love the songwriting. I think it's really assured. I think it offers something different. I think the audio production is really interesting. There's songs in 10/8, you know, it's got some complexity. I think the storytelling's really refined.
I love how you said that, the song's in 10/8. I had no idea. See, you're smart. Smart. For me, I only know the answer to this because on the podcast we forced ourselves to do this, and it was to rank all the albums, and right now my number one Taylor Swift album is Midnights. And I think that is because the full, like we're doing the original and the 3 a.m., it's one album. And I think that is because it's a culmination of all of her work. So a girlfriend literally messaged me yesterday doing her research ahead of the Eras tour and was like, is it bad if I think that some of these songs sound similar to her old work? And I said, no, I think that's quite astute of you because I feel like she has, while she's been doing this Eras tour, while she's been doing all the re-records, she has released something that is an embodiment of her entire discography. And I mean, it has bops, it has deep cuts. I just love it. So that's mine. Oh, we've got another one. Yes, hello.
Hello, my name is Maria. First of all, thank you so much for putting this together. I'm not a die-hard fan, but I'm really interested in her academically.
Maria, I'm going to pause you. On the scale, 1 to 13, where are you?
7, maybe 6.
7, maybe 6. We've got, you're among friends.
You mentioned a little bit about the unique business structure, and you also mentioned how other artists are handling that through multiple income streams with makeup and whatnot. Is there anything else that is unique about Taylor's business structure? I don't know much, so maybe if you could share some details.
Oh, okay, so the question was, is there anything unique? Mahala, I feel like this is you in particular. Anything unique about Taylor Swift's business structure?
Well, I think that she's probably heavily involved in her marketing campaigns around every release, whereas some artists aren't. You know, they'll be involved in the music videos and the artwork and the photos, but they might not really be involved with how you connect with that on, say, social media or through campaigns. Whereas I think that she's very measured in the way that she executes all of that. And I think that she's like saying to her labels and her PR team, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, we're going to do it at this time because of X, Y, and Z. So I think she has a full strategy team, to be honest. It's not just like a label strategy team. I'd say it's her own personal strategy team that's part of her broader network. I also think that the way that she treats crew on the road is really great. Something as simple, I don't know if you heard, she paid her truck drivers a bonus of $100,000 each because of the time that they put in pulling all her gear around in production. Like, that is a massive job. She's thinking about, you know, the smaller cogs that other people don't see within the makeup of a live show. I think that she, connects with everyone on her team personally, and that's something that a megastar doesn't always have to do because they're up here and other people are just kind of in the sphere. So I think she's a personalised artist who makes the time. And not all musicians have the headspace for that, but she sounds like it's an important thing for her. They're the key ones that I think that really stand out, in my opinion.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
I mean, Tree Pain, I feel like that's a unique thing. No, I think, as you said, I think just the way that she has had such a consistent fan engagement strategy over the last 18 years is, as we said, something that not every artist has done. And so I think that's part of it as well.
Sounds so funny when you say that, for the last 18 years.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God,
We're
so
old.
old. Andy, do we have any more? Do we have time for any more? Oh my gosh, yes, over here, yes. Lovely dress, hello.
Hello. Thank you, hello. My name's Heidi.
Hi, Heidi.
Thanks so much for the discussion, it's been really interesting. My question is, you've done a lot of comparing and contrasting with other major female artists. The one that hasn't come up at all is Pink, and she's here at the moment, and they're kind of, she's in Sydney whilst Taylor's in Melbourne, and then they're doing the opposite, I guess. So recognising that they probably share a deal of a fan base as well. Just any thoughts on how you would compare and contrast Pink and Taylor?
Oh, what do you think? Who wants to kick us off? Do you want to go?
I mean, I think one of the unique things about Pink is, again, like the stage production that she does. You know, there was that TikTok meme about her, what are you doing? You know, get down from there. I'm not going to do the accent. But yeah, I think she really puts a lot into creating this very impressive show, and I think that's something that people have said about the Eras tour and, you know, the stage production for that, but I think Pink definitely kind of puts on a full show for her fans and that kind of experience. It's like with Taylor too, you know, you've got the friendship bracelets and there's all these kind of other things that happen around it, and so yeah, I admire Pink for the way that she puts that together and does that.
I think that in her beginning of her career, she was really kind of an outcast within the industry and really like labelled as the rebel and the person who's always gonna, you know, be hardcore and mess shit up, and, you know, probably wasn't taken as seriously in the sense of her as a musician because she had this gritty, like rebel element to her, and she's like, don't, you know, F with me. But as she's gotten older, she's still got that about her, like she's a powerful woman, but she's kind of reshaped her image in a way to reach further in her fan base. Like she was quite, Get the Party Started was a bop, so everyone loved it, but I don't think her earlier music was listened to in the same way as Taylor Swift's was. Yes, it was probably the early 2000s and there wasn't, you know, the reach that Taylor Swift has had in a different way, because Pink's in her mid-40s now, I believe, or early 40s. But I think that she honestly has done the hustle, and she's done the hustle probably a lot harder than Taylor Swift has. In my opinion, she came from a really working class background. Her parents did not have money, so she really had to put herself out there and, work to the bone to get known and to support herself, which I don't think people are recognizing for Pink. Like, she has an incredible live performance. She's very physical. Like, Taylor plays for 3 hours, but Pink throws herself around in the air. Like, that's not...
It's nuts. Those videos coming out of Sydney, I was like, oh, that's incredible.
But she also does this really cool touring strategy with her family, which I think is another thing that people don't think about is artists have families. What, are you just going to leave them at home and go on the road and do this thing? And no, she brings her kids on the road, and her touring structure is around what her family needs. And I think that that's redefining touring for artists in this day and age, which Taylor's not at a point with that right now. She hasn't got kids, so it'll be really interesting to see what she does do if she does have kids. But Pink holds, you know, Willow accountable. Willow's like, I want to work, and she's like, well, prove to me, like, what you're going to do. I'm not just going to hand it to you on a platter, girl. Like, I earned this, I worked hard. So I think that's a really good point though, Pink.
Oh, got another, yeah. Who we've got? Who have we got? Over here? Oh, yes, sorry. I can see you. Over here, yes.
Hi. My name's Leanne.
Hi, Leanne.
Hi. You were speaking earlier about Taylor being omnipresent right now, and obviously it's all anyone can talk about, especially the people in this room ad nauseum, I'm sure. If we go back to 1989 and all of the conversation about her being so overexposed at the time, and it led to the disappearance and reputation and totally reinventing herself. Has she progressed to the point where she has a power and influence that right now she doesn't risk being overexposed? or is her power and influence going to lead to even more overexposure? Like, are we going to see a 10-year cycle of Taylor being overexposed?
Oh, that's interesting. We were talking about that in the dressing room.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to know, isn't it? She's very good at turning corners and changing things up. I
mean, I think now she's more a cultural moment than she was 10 years ago. I can't really pinpoint why, but maybe it's because she's decided to vocalize things more than she did when she was in her 20s. But she is definitely ingrained in ways. I don't know if anyone's seen the NFL ad for the Super Bowl.
Cetaphil?
Yeah. I was like, what? Like, how did that happen? But yeah, I think it might be to do with, in my opinion, it might be to do with the political and cultural impact that she has, whereas I don't think she wanted to be that in her early 20s. I think she just wanted to be a standalone musician, but that she didn't realise that when you're that big, you kind of fall into the cultural world as well. Do you have any thoughts, Kate?
I mean, I think there is a risk of the overexposure. I mean, I think definitely in the last week, just with the Super Bowl, it was interesting with the Grammys. Like, there was quite a bit of, and again, backlash for different reasons, but a lot of people are just like, oh, I'm so sick of Taylor Swift. Like, can we talk about something else? I feel like maybe she as a person is embracing her fame a bit more in terms of not feeling like, oh no, people think I'm too much, so I better, go back a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously at the moment she's about to come to Australia, so of course every single newspaper is writing something about her. So it'll be interesting, I think, when she's gone and as she kind of this tour wraps up, which as you said is still another year, how people feel.
I don't think she cares as much as she used to whether or not people like her.
Exactly.
I think she's kind of like, well, you know what, I'm going to do it anyways. Yeah. And maybe that's the difference. Yeah. Whereas in her early 20s, she really cared and was playing to it.
Great quote in Miss Americana about the, like, am I too loud in the house that I built from the songs that I wrote? And it's like, yeah, like, I think she's just owning it a bit more. And so, yeah, I think culturally there are going to be people who are just like, I'm so sick of hearing about her, but...
Well, speaking of the culture, has anyone seen that Margot Robbie quote recently, which is like, I think people are going to get sick of me?
Yeah.
After Barbie and stuff, so she's going to disappear?
She is disappearing.
She's like, I'm out. And I'm like, absolutely not, Margot. Get yourself back out there. Get yourself back out there. Do we have another... Oh, yes, over here, yes.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, guys, this is so good that there's questions. We never know if you're going to ask questions. This is awesome.
Hello?
Yes. Yes, you.
Hi, my name's Tony. I would say I'm a level 12 Swiftie.
Well done. Didn't have to ask you. Well done.
Love your podcast, Georgie, and if anyone here hasn't listened to it, you must.
Thank you very much. She's not a plant, but thank you.
I just wanted to ask in terms, like we've talked a lot about Taylor's impact and, whether she's been good or bad on different things in the music industry. What would you say would be the legacy that she's leaving in terms of the real tangible improvements she's making, particularly for emerging artists?
Ooh. Kate, let's begin with you.
Yeah, I think the
good question.
The owning of your own songs, the writing of your own songs, the presentation of your own songs, the choice of collaborators, the choice of engineers that she works for. She's really empowered that space where many artists have felt completely helpless at the hands of record companies, and she's really changed the face of that for lots of artists. So I think for young women, she's a strong icon. She stands up for herself. She's starting to make political statements.
Do you think she's a goal that maybe those artists could, I don't know, try to shoot for? I'm not sure, because in terms of tangible change, if someone's like, has she left paving stones for other people to walk upon, trying to get there?
I think in terms of contracting and licensing, she has, although it's a really brutal world that's hard to make changes in, and the door closes as soon as it sort of opens. In terms of contracts and licensing, it's a pretty hard-edged world.
Well, I don't think anyone's ever going to be able to re-record their music ever again. I think that labels are going to put in a contingency thing, which will be, if you sign and we own masters, you cannot re-record.
They sort of already have. Yeah. Record companies have now turned around and new licenses are saying, you can't re-record these songs for 30 to 50 years. So that's a sort of negative impact, if you like.
So I think in the sense of emerging artists, she's making, like, based on what's happened to her, she's probably making them think about, do they want a label? Like, they might need the money for, say, marketing or, creative items that they need to curate and stuff, but will they lose the future royalties because they sign onto a deal that takes their mastering? And so it's kind of like she's been this example in a way of like how you construct your own career. And it's not a right or wrong, it's more like, well, this could happen, but now there's this block that's been put in, which means that you can't re-record your stuff. So I think she's more just made people question what control they want, and do they want creative control, or are they happy to kind of just be a bit, automated with everything and go with what they're meant to be consumed into as a musician.
Now, yes, down here. So sorry I missed you before. Next to the fabulous dress. Hello.
The fabulous dress is called Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hello, Anna.
I'm a self-described, I suppose, at least a 9.
At least a 9. That's good.
And that's the preface to why I can ask this. So I was surprised in the conversation about feminism and Taylor Swift that, and comparisons to Beyonce and Rihanna, that Taylor Swift's whiteness wasn't mentioned at all. And in some ways, Taylor Swift has been privileged enough to not have to be political, to allow, to be apolitical for many, many years. If we're thinking about connecting with her fans and authenticity, why can't we ask more of her in terms of political statements?
What do you think?
Great question.
Yeah.
That's a really great question.
I was like, who wants to jump in?
I don't have any answers for you, but and it's a great discussion, actually. It's just a great point that you make. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in the next year with the US election and what she chooses to do there and what she chooses to say.
I think that, amazing question for starters. But she has so much privilege. So, yes, we're talking about women, right? And they're all women, great. But then out of those 3 women, Taylor has privilege purely by being cisgendered, white, from a middle-class background, straight. Yes, she's a gay ally, which is awesome, but it's also she has no connection to the LGBTQ, and she has no connection to, people of colour and the experiences that they have had. So I think as a white privileged person, we should be asking more of her, but whether or not she's going to share that is something that, we don't know. We've been asking for her to talk out about, things with Beyonce for ages, and that speech where Beyonce kind of stood back and let Taylor have her moment, well, Beyonce was the victim in that situation, in my opinion. A black woman is always meant to be silenced and give a white person the space to exist. And maybe that was just because she was young and a bit ignorant. Maybe she wouldn't do that today, but that's a whole other level of, privilege within the industry. Whether you're male or female, being a person of colour is way more difficult. And in this room, it's predominantly white, and, that's fine, but it's also unfortunate that there aren't more connection with different communities to have this conversation, because if anyone had any thoughts on this and they're from a different background, I think that would be really cool to hear.
Cool, great question. Oh, we're done. I think we're done. I'm so sorry. I'm getting the wrap up. Jen's coming back onto the stage. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your very, very, very thoughtful questions. And I will hand it back to Jen as we sit here.
So one more round of applause for our wonderful panellists, please. So I wanted to thank you all very much for coming tonight. We hope that you found the conversation interesting and that you'll take some of what we thought about today back home to your friends and family and tell them about it as well. Thank you very much for your amazing questions. They were all really, really great and very interesting and enabled a really interesting conversation at the end as well. I would very much like to thank Federation Square, Fed Square, for so kindly donating this wonderful venue to us at the Swiftposium, and for their staff who've been here helping out today. I'd also like to thank the incredible AV team who are up at the back making sure that everything sounds okay, and our wonderful volunteers who've been handing out the mic. So if we could just have a round of applause for them, that would be wonderful. Before we go, we do have some presents for our panellists to say thank you for taking the time to be with us and for sharing their knowledge. We've tried to theme these to Taylor. So we have some Eras-themed flowers.
Oh, wow. Stop. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. Thanks, guys.
A University of Melbourne pen for writing all of your deepest, darkest secrets.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you. Speaking of reputation being people's favourite albums. And the First Knowledges book, Songlines by Kulin Nations and Gumbanya scholar Professor Margot Neal and Dr. Lynn Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Guys, these are the flowers. It's the Eras flowers. That's what they look like.
For our Swiftposium conference colleagues who are with us this evening and who are moving on to the next activity with us, we'll be meeting outside in the atrium foyer by the green pillar. So thank you once again very much everybody for coming. It's been lovely to have you. Please keep an eye out on our hashtag Swiftposium24 hashtag. During the course of the conference, you'll be seeing a lot of stuff there. And of course, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, because I agree with you, I refuse to call it X, and TikTok at Swiftposium. Thanks very much, everyone.